Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing, with your hosts Glenn Thayer and the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young.
Well, folks, welcome back to another edition of the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. Tom and I are here, and we're going to talk about the new world of online publishing. With all the new tools and everything and toys that have been coming out between the iPads and the Kindles and even the new Android-based tablet PCs that are coming out these days. There's so many options. So let's just dive right in and let's look at what's going on. Because, I mean, obviously we've got Borders, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, the Apple App Store, all those things. The face of online publishing is completely changing.
It really is. And I think the question might be, what does that mean for our web marketers out there? What does it mean that this is all changing? Well, what it means is that you have to stay on top of how content is viewed through technology, because so much of web marketing has to do with the face of content and the content that drives people to your company and drives people to understanding what kind of value you can provide for them. And when we look at what's happening with online publishing, it's a classic case of the needs of the user versus pricing versus distribution and the platform versus the type of device, the actual technology that's used in the device that's used. And we're still very early. I think it's important for users to understand we're still very early in how this is going to come out and how it's going to pan out, because we still don't have a handle on pricing for books and other kinds of online content. We still don't have a really good handle on how magazines are going to be viewed and used and how that subscription service is going to work through technology. But we do know that there's some winners and losers already, and that they've been pretty clear at what's happening. We've seen it already with the Netflix and with Blockbuster, and we've talked about those guys in another podcast. But what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the winners and losers in this changing world of online publishing, and kind of look at their websites to see what they're doing, how they're promoting their strategies, and what has kind of happened as a result of what they're doing.
It's a really interesting thing to look at, because it's that conundrum is, do you want to be an innovator and be first? Is that going to put you ahead? Or is it the syndrome of the second mouse is the one that gets the cheese?
Yeah, right. I think in this case, it's a little bit of both. It's a combination of the mouse is the cheese. And what I mean by that is that the people that are doing really well are the ones that get everything. They get the device that sells the content, they get the technology that runs the device, and they get the rights to the content. Everything. So that's what Apple is doing. And we'll start with Apple, and we'll talk about the others. But Apple is got the app that runs on the iPad, and they've got the licensing agreements with all the publishers. So once you get into the iPad and start using their iBooks, then you're kind of stuck. I mean, that's who you'll continue to buy books from, and they've wrapped up and captured the whole thing.
Well, that's probably the big difference between the Kindle and the iPad. Is the Kindle is you're stuck on Amazon, so whatever they have in Amazon's catalog is all that you have.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I say all that you have. There's millions and millions of books there, but on the other end of things is on the iPad, you've got all the iBooks. So you've got the iBook catalog that Apple has, plus you have Barnes & Noble, plus you have the Amazon Kindle store. And the Nook, Barnes & Noble's their Nook library. Right. So you have a lot more that you can access. So from a content standpoint, Apple's kind of dialed it in there as well.
That's right. Not only did they take the mouse and the cheese, they took all the other food that the mouse might eat too. They got it all together there, and that's how they've actually, I think, in some ways, positioned themselves ahead of Amazon. Amazon was the early one in with the Kindle, and the Kindle was great. So they had the Kindle, they had the technology to run the Kindle, and they had, of course, the vast library of books through the Amazon store and the connection there. What they didn't have, is that the Kindle basically just runs Amazon, and the Kindle really is just a book reader. Now the iPad's coming in and changing all that, because that's okay. You've got your Kindle and you can use it, but hey, look at all the other features on the iPad. What if you want to switch from a book to a movie? What if you want to start listening to some music and pick up a newspaper or something? So that's what the iPad has done is it's changed that. And I think that for our listeners in web marketing, I think it's real important to understand that you want to take that comprehensive view. You want to try to cover all your bases as opposed to saying, well, if we just do this one thing and have their users come in on this one section, you might be missing some opportunities. And I think that's what Apple has done. And I think Apple will emerge as a winner. I know profitability-wise they're a winner over Amazon, but there are two other major players in this area too, which is real interesting to see how they pan out, and that's Barnes & Nobles and Borders. And so if we look at the winners here, I think Apple and Amazon are clear winners. Barnes & Noble, I think the jury's still out. At this point, they're doing okay. But Borders is definitely a loser in this case. They're I think, going through bankruptcy, closing a lot of stores. And it's real interesting to note that they did that because they didn't capture all those mediums, all those channels. They basically said, we're going to be a bookseller. We're going to sell books, and we'll eventually get around to this online thing. Well, from what I can see, the online thing just about killed them. I mean, they missed the boat completely, and now they're struggling to come back. So if you go look at the Borders website on their homepage, the biggest graphic there is the shop e-readers for any budget, starting at $99.99. So now they're trying to position themselves as a low-cost provider of other people's readers. And I don't think I see the most popular readers there, which would be, of course, the Kindle, the iPad, and the Nook. They're selling the Sony product, another product that I can't tell what it is.
It's a Kobo, I think, is what the...
Yeah, and then the Kobo, which I actually have never heard of. So good luck with that. I mean, I don't think that's a strategy that's going to get them out of bankruptcy.
Yeah,
I think they need to figure that out.
I love Borders. Because,
as a store. Yeah.
I love Borders because there's two reasons. Because I still read books, like books.
Right.
I like to mark
with
them
pages
up with
and
pages. I like to
ink
turn the page,
yeah.
and I like to mark them up. I like to write in them. Now, that's more of a business and productivity. I don't read a bunch of novels. So on that end, I would probably... a Kindle might be good for me on that one, or an iPad. Now, on the other side, on the flip side of this, though, is what I also love about Borders is I get a coupon every week for 33% off
That's
of a
right.
book. And
That's
guess what?
right.
I go in and I buy one book at 33% off. And it's usually a book that I'm wanting to get. I have my book list. And by the time I'm done reading the current book I'm on, it's time for another one. I get another coupon and I go buy another book, which is awesome to bring me into the store. However, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of like the bottom feeder for Borders.
I would have a feeling that you are not what they had in mind when they did the coupon.
Probably
I think
not.
the coupon for them is it's a leader to get people in the store, and they want to upsell their other products, and they want the store experience to motivate them to upsell and buy other products. So all that coupon program is doing for them is cutting into their profits. And I'll tell you right now, Apple and Amazon do not do coupons for their online books. And there's no press, there's no print, there's no paper, there's no ink. It's just digital.
Well, and that's
there's servers to watch out for.
Which makes a big difference, because when you're talking about the experience, here's another thing that I did like about what Borders was doing is they were having family reading nights, like family nights. Come out and play the games that we have. Check out some of the books and bring your family out. And here's some discounts for the cafe. And really a reason to go out there. And I brought my kids out there and said, let's go check it out and let's see. And unfortunately, it wasn't really well attended. We were the only ones that were there for it.
Oh my gosh!
And so they had no real place set up. And they did have an opportunity. There was an opportunity there for us to get involved with the brand. I mean, literally at Borders and go, oh, Borders is a really cool place to go. Mm-hmm. I can take my kids out and have an educational night and be able to get them out. It doesn't cost me anything. It might cost me a couple bucks for hot chocolate and cookies or something to that effect.
And you get it's a thing to do. It's a destination. And I think what's interesting then is to see that Amazon and Apple don't have that. I mean, you have the Apple retail stores, but they're not. You don't take your family there to. Maybe you will in the future, but right now what you have is basically Apple's a technology company selling content, Amazon's purely online selling content, and then Barnes & Noble now is somewhere in between because they have the Nook, they have their device, and then they have the stores where you can take your family. And Barnes & Noble so far is doing better than Borders, at least we think they are, but how much of their sales are coming from the Nook? And did they catch this wave of technology just right? And can they marry the two of the offline publishing and online publishing world, which is what you were talking about, the experience of reading a book, the experience of your family being in a store, or you shopping for a book in a store. Is that going away? And I think for our listeners, for the web marketers out there and people that listen to this podcast, what does that mean for you in the content on your website? And how important now is it for you to have an extensive library of content on your website that is more than just market speak or even call to action items, but real substantial content that can be downloaded and distributed and read electronically? I mean, I think we're on the verge of something like that just taking off. And then, of course, Borders has to make a decision. You know, what are we going to be? Who are we going to be? Right now, their decision is we're going to shut down stores. That's what we're going to be. You know, but you can't sustain that. So, where do they go?
I think, but on that end, though, to that end is the bankruptcy allows them to get out of underperforming stores and really focus on the ones that are performing and really start to look at that business model, what works for them and what doesn't work. Now, you talk about content, and this is something that's really, really big. I mean, obviously, blogs are not going away.
Right.
And blogs are an excellent way to capture content. And I don't want to even say like thoughts, but I mean, you've got all these different blogs. A prime example would be like GoDaddy. GoDaddy has their blog with their CEO, what Bob Parsons has his, and they always promote it. It's like go hear what Bob has to say, and sometimes it could be funny or it could be high content.
Yeah, I mean, let's get inside the head of the web user. The web user and the user of technology is reading content. They want the ideas, they want the content, they want the information, and it's now to the point where 20 years ago, when you went to get content, you had a very specific idea of what you wanted. You wanted a book, you wanted a magazine, you wanted a newspaper. You hold it in your hand and you read it. The world now is not about that anymore. The world now is about, I want the idea, I want the information, I want to know who it's coming from, I want to know if it's well trusted, I want to know what other people think about it. And I'm going to read that on my iPad, on my iPhone, on my Android system, on my Nook, on my Kindle, on my website, on my blog, on my, whatever new devices are coming in the future. And that's how things are changing, how technology is changing this whole world of ideas. So for you out there doing web marketing, think about your content. Your content now becomes part of this world of ideas and this new world of publishing, what used to be called publishing. And I think that the companies that can grasp that and really make it work and even integrate it with stores like Barnes & Noble are going to do really well. The ones that miss it or get it wrong are going to really struggle because there's going to be people, lots of people like me, when I go into Borders, I don't buy anything. But it's fun to go in there. I might get a cup of coffee and look and see what they have. But I'm going to get my book on the iPad or the Kindle. Because I want that book to come with me wherever I go. I want to have a couple dozen books with me so I can reference whatever I need to. And that's just a whole different way of the old school. Could you imagine carrying around with you 50 books in your briefcase? So, it's very interesting what's happening, and I think it's very exciting. If you look actually at these websites to see what they're promoting, like if we look at the 4 websites of the companies we're discussing, let's start with Apple. iPad 2, boom, right in your face, exactly what we're talking about, and very little other content on the site. If you look at Amazon, Amazon now is one step ahead again of Barnes & Noble and Borders, and they're selling apps because Amazon knows that it's not the medium. It's not the fact that it's this book and paper, and that's disappearing. It's this technology. And so it won't be long before you see Barnes & Noble, the second tier, follow behind and start selling apps as well. And of course, we know what Apple has done with apps. And the Apple store still outnumbers the Android store by I think a factor of maybe 10 to 1 or more than that. So it's a huge difference between available apps. And then if you look at the Barnes & Noble website, they're immediately taking you to their Nook color, which is an advantage over the Kindle or the old Kindle. And if they're scrolling their picks of the week, but it's interesting to see that they're scrolling their picks of the week as a digital book cover, not as a book you would pick up and hold in your hands. It's a cover. It's just the cover, the digital cover. And then finally, if you look at Borders, then you really get confused. You can see oh, man, whatever. Okay, we'll sell these stupid e-readers. Let's sell them cheap and let's get them on the front page. I don't really want to do that, but I mean, as you can see, that's what the decision was made, to just shop e-readers for any budget.
And you saw the other little link that says get your apps for Mac, PC, and mobile devices.
Yes.
Is right there, but it's really, really small.
And if you click on this one device that you can't read, it looks like it might be 2 versions of the Kobo. So anyway, I mean, you can buy these online. I can't imagine that someone would go to Borders and buy one of these. Maybe they are.
So what does that mean for our listeners as far as content? Because one thing we don't want to make sure is we want to make sure that our listeners are not stuck with, I got to generate a bunch of content, and now they're putting a bunch of content on their websites that clutter their websites.
Well, I think that there's several things. In fact, why don't we'll just jump to the action items for today, because we've got a few that have come up here. I think that we need to come back to web strategy. We need to look at this example from this podcast and say, wow, look at the importance of strategy once again in the marketplace. The importance of, in this case, staying up on technology to the point where you either see the trend before it happens, like an Apple does, or the minute the trend happens, you react to it and you're ready, like a Barnes & Noble does with the Nook. The people that don't do that, the ones that fall behind, the Borders of the world and so forth, they're the ones that are going to struggle. The other thing then is understanding now the importance of this marriage between content and technology, and the concept that the ideas on your blog, on your website, are important ideas that will get read on a variety of readers and platforms. And that the bottom line is that the user is looking for those ideas, so you need to have them on your website. And I am a big fan, actually, of having volumes and volumes of content on your website. I'm also a big fan of having succinct content on your website and bullet points and so forth. I think what the listeners can learn here is that content's going to get read. It's going to be in a variety of sources, and that it can drive really important results for your business, because ultimately users will look at, where did this content come from? What's of value to me? And then hopefully they'll pick you, and they'll pick you as a provider, or they'll have some kind of contact with you so that you have a conversion from your site or your blog or whatever content you're posting. So it's an important thing. And I think that it's important not only to understand what's happening in online publishing and stay on top of it, see the new things that are about to happen, and then it's also critically important then to relate these ideas and concepts back to your own web marketing efforts.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. Folks, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us on the next podcast.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com. If you have a website you would like us to review or an issue you would like to see covered in future podcasts, email us at info@intuitivewebsites.com.